Hello, everyone. I'm Penelope Jean Hayes, founder of the Viral Energy Institute, and I'd love to introduce to you a very special instructor today. Julia Griffin is an animal communicator, and she's the host of her own radio show, One True Self, and you can find Julia at onetrueself.com. Her radio show is on Transformation Talk Radio, and Julia has this incredible Odyssey, this amazing story where she lived with wolves for 9 years, and they taught her communication with plants, animals. Yes, she can communicate with your pets. And she works with people all over the world to help them resolve energetic blocks. And she is an amazing friend to the Viral Energy Institute. And I'd like to turn the floor over to Julia. Thank you very much. Also want to mention that we have a small audience with us. Dima is joining us today. And Dima is a student of animal communication, and she wants to learn more from Julia. So thank you both. Thank you, Julia, for being here. And the floor is yours.
I am so happy to be here. I'm Julia Griffin. I lived with wolves for quite a while. These amazing things happened. I want to tell you first a little bit about what I do. I am an intuitive healer because I can see energy. Everyone has energy in their field, everyone has energy in their lives. Wolves have a very deep understanding. I actually awakened with wolves. I work with people and animals pretty much all day long. And about 80% of what I teach and what I do is literally what I learned from wolves. I think we tend to have a very thin consciousness about awakening and spirituality. And there's a whole lot that we can learn from nature and that we can learn from animals and other energies that are in the world. One of the amazing things about it is that the minute that I met a wolf, I could hear them like they were talking, just like we're talking right now. And let me tell you about meeting them. I had sort of a dream series, although I was awake, that I could hear and see in my mind the spirit wolf that was howling outside. And it kept me up all night long. 3 weeks later, my ex husband, now ex, asked me if I'd like to go and meet some wolves. And I guess because I was programmed, I had a big fear of it, but I thought, well, it won't hurt to go look. Well, as soon as I saw them, I just absolutely had to get in the pen. I was just amazed. It's like my body took over. We're going in there. And when I was in the pen with them, and wolves are gorgeous, they have all these different layers of coats and colors on their coat. They have capes, they have masks. Every single wolf has a different face with a mask. But when I put my hand on the wolf and I could feel down in his coat, it was like the most amazing thing. Nature became like 10 times as intense, and I could feel his consciousness go into mine. So it was like this total merge. That night when I went home, the wolf started talking to me. He showed me a path from the woods to where I was. I'm an herbalist. He told me where I could find different herbs on the mountain, and all the information that he gave me was correct. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine, someone who became a friend, Liz Mahaffey, she came to take the two wolves, and I wanted to say goodbye to them. And I met her there, and she said, I got a dozen wolves at home. Just follow me home. Come meet some more. Well, when I met them, I could feel Juno, the alpha wolf, and the alpha wolf is female, and she makes all the decisions for the pack. But I could feel her look into my soul and feel my heart. And it's like she looked at me, she weighed me out, and I was acceptable to her. And that just felt like an incredible thing. And so I walked around with them, I played with them, and then they started telling me stories about the universe. Later on, they literally explained to me how energy works, how human beings are very limited because we think the same thoughts over and over and we don't have room for expansion. And that was the beginning of my 9 year odyssey with the wolves. One thing that I will say is that I've been through some really difficult things in my life that I certainly had not gotten over. And wolves send waves of energy. So I had these two times of the day, 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, where that depression would feel oppressive and I would remember things. They would make me remember things that were happy. like the best time I ever had at the beach, a moment when I felt like my parents loved me more than anything, being pregnant with one of my children and going to sleep in church, but it was spring and I could smell all the flowers. The first time I kissed someone that I loved. Those kinds of memories began to dominate. When that happens, you change. So like that's one of the things that I teach people to do is to substitute a positive sequence of thought and memories for negative ones. So let's take a second to think about that. Right now, wherever you are physically, how did you feel when you were physically at your best of your entire life? You start thinking about that, you'll start exercising, you'll start liking the way you look in the mirror. Your body will change. So every thought, every emotion carries a wave of energy. So we can take those waves of energy and we can change ourselves with them or we can limit ourselves. And that was a lot of what they taught me is that humans are so limited in consciousness. So do we have any questions about that, where we are?
First of all, it's incredible. We do a lot of work at the Institute on trying to understand consciousness, what consciousness is. And you're filling in some of the blanks here. Did the wolves give you any insight on, or have you gained insight on what consciousness is? I think a lot of people have difficulty kind of defining that.
Okay, let's talk a little bit, first of all, about desires. We all have a zillion desires in a given day. Maybe it's to have a cup of tea, maybe it's to drink water, maybe it's to go run errands and not do my work. Sometimes that happens to me. So, your consciousness is the entire part of you, your auric field, your thoughts, your emotions, your spirituality. Now, and from the wolves, when we're aligned, it's with our inner self, it's with our heart. They think that anything that we do that doesn't relate to our heart or doesn't relate to feeling everything and being super alive, they think that that just doesn't even matter. And while they're very polite, they don't bother with people who don't have that quality of being able to tap in and be present. Like wolves will play all day long in a stream. And I've done it with them. And it's one of the happiest things in my entire life because the stones were real, the wolves were real, the water was incredible. So it's feeling. Now, if we go to higher consciousness, let's go to the quantum field for just a moment. We can say that if we're thinking about something that's not good, we will eventually pull that in through fear, which is emotion. If we're thinking about something that's good, anything that we want in the future, that's got to be a higher vibration because it's better than where we're living. So if we go to the quantum field, just to make it very simple, it's the place of love and light that records our thoughts. So when we're in a higher vibration, and you can go there through meditation, essential oils, diet, exercise, or just simply determination, you can decide you want to be in a higher vibration. Chanting is another thing, singing. At that place of a higher vibration, you begin to affect matter. What is matter? It's light spinning at a certain frequency, but it's so low that we think it's real. So when our vibration is up, those particles of matter begin to respond to our energetic field. And this was something that the wolves taught me. I could want something and it would appear. Like when I started growing herbs, all of a sudden people started sending me money and said, I don't know why, this is for your garden. Well, that never happened before. People gave me seeds and plants. They could fold time. If I was running late, they would say, focus with all your attention on the time you want to be there and don't feel any anxiety. Just know we can do it. Now, that was easy with the wolf in the car with me, right? Harder to do on my own. Right now, all of us who are listening, we can change our reality somewhat by just imagining the next 2 or 3 hours are fabulous or exciting, or that there's some change coming in. Today's the appointed day for something wonderful. Why not? But we don't. We tend to repeat everything. Before we go to bed, we see that our rooms will look the same, we'll do pretty much the same thing. So we're literally creating all the time. And when we get into the quantum field, our ability to create expands exponentially. Does that help?
So much. It's truly incredible, and I'm sure that our students want to know so much more. How What is it that the wolves want to help us with? There must be a reason why they communicate with human beings.
There definitely is, and they spend a lot of energy doing it. You can read in my newsletter on One True Self every full moon. The wolves send a message to us. They're working with dolphins and whales. They come through with sonar. The message is that we're creators, that when we hit these higher frequencies and we create things, we're capable of changing an incredible amount of the world and our world and finding connections just like the one we're having today. We're all moving into higher consciousness as we talk about it. They say that in the beginning, I could say, I want an apple, it would appear. So we've got a long way to go. Here's some examples of it. People used to have languages that aligned with the heart. That's what animals and plants, they're all aligned. It's a different kind of awakening because it involves the physical body and nature, which we need. What is it the Native Americans said? There are many great teachers and they are not all human. Um, so when we speak our truth, that's a higher vibration. When we talk about creating right now, notice how it's exciting. And the thing that we want to create are things that align with our heart. The herb garden was an example. I had always wanted one, and I had almost a third of an acre done in a year and a half, which pretty much dug it and did it myself. That's a lot. Now, because I could hear plants at that time, they started growing 2 or 3 times their normal size. So you can imagine what we could do if we all start using this. We don't have to worry about the outer world. When we work on our inner world, we automatically bring in energies that alter it. That's what they want. They want us as a companion, at least in creating. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Did you have to prepare to meet the wolves? Like, was it did did you have to like prepare for it? Was it something that you kind of felt was coming? Like, what had you meet the wolves, and what are the things that we need to do to get to a place where we can start to connect with wolves?
That is a wonderful question. For 3 years, I probably spent 2 hours a day meditating and doing everything that I could to get to a higher frequency. I had this incredible moment that is considered to be one of the initiations of the soul, but everybody goes through it in a different way. And that is when you perceive that everything is light and everything is love. But it's like it's a flash, it comes and it goes. Well, I had studied enough ancient text to know that that means you get a teacher. And I lived in the woods. So I was like, well, any day their car is going to stop here and they'll say, I came to be your teacher. But what I got was a wolf. And as far as preparing to see them, I mean, you can laugh at me, but I think almost every time I went to see them, I would put on makeup and clothes that I knew they would like because I was so excited about it.
That's very courteous of you. I'd be excited too. So when it first happened, what was that moment like? I have a couple of questions, so I'll just kind of lay them out. Um, is it something you hear, like an audible sound, like you're hearing our voice right now, or is it a thought that is imparted into your mind, into your consciousness? What was that moment like? Did you react to it in shock? Or at this point, did you just, fully accept that this is just, normal stuff?
I was so thrilled that I started writing it all down and journaling it right away. And when I found out that the herbs that the wolf told me about were actually there and that they had stories, creation myths, I mean, I was so thrilled. As I went deeper, Juno, the alpha wolf, decided that just hearing her was not enough. So she would send me waves of information. Like she gave me this beautiful story about why people painted in caves, which the reason that they did it is if you draw or you write and you wish something, you're putting it into creation. But she did not give me any kind of flow with it. She told me the end of the story first, and I got it in pieces. So it was like putting together a puzzle. And the more I did that, the better that I got at it until they could just literally send me a whole wave that was like watching a movie. But I mean, people have to understand, I practiced at least 8 hours a week for like 2 years. It didn't just happen instantly that I got so good at it.
And do you actually hear an audible voice?
Yes.
What about plants, Julia? When you communicate with plants, is it that they're speaking? Are they speaking a language? Is it English that you're hearing because this is how you translate? Or how does it work with communicating with
With
plants?
plants, it feels like green energy, and that has messages in it. The first time it happened, I was working in the garden. I was moving this giant plant that probably weighed 30 pounds, and I dug a hole for it. I always dig a hole before I put the plant in so I can see if it likes that place. And the plant said, "Put me down. I don't want to go there." And I thought, I could not have heard that. That's just impossible. It's this little teeny voice. And I had raised beds and I just tripped over the bed and it said, "I want to go over there." So I put it over there. And when I did, it just like doubled in size overnight. So they have preferences. They like to be with family members. So like thyme, that's thuja. If you put 6 types of thyme together, they would grow way better than if you move them all around the garden. They have families. They have friends that they like, and they have other plants that they don't like. All plants like to grow in a circular form. If we think about it, that's a symbol of wholeness. And I had started off trying to do like the English garden thing with geometrics. Oh no, those would just die. They didn't like it at all. They wanted circular patterns. So they have patterns. They have preferences as to how they want to grow and live and what they want to be near. And as soon as you sync with that, the growth is tremendous. And with herbs, they were so strong, I could just use these little teeny tiny amounts in teas. So they did that for me. Also, they would tell me which parts to pick if I was using it to heal someone or heal myself.
Julia, there was a book, I think it was written in 1973 called The Secret Lives of Plants.
Mhm.
And they studied consciousness in plants. And this is way back then. And this is by scientists. So you're picking up on something that's been around for a lot longer than human beings, and yet so many people are not utilizing this amazing gift. It's pretty incredible the studies that they did back then in that book where they had someone approach a plant with a scissor with the intention to cut. And even just the intention before even cutting the limb, the plant responded. They had it hooked up to sensors and the plant responded to just the intention to cut. And then when someone approached without the intention to cut, same scissors, it looked like there was an intention to cut, but they really didn't intend to cut the plant. The plant had no reaction. So it was tested that the plants knew the difference, that it actually came down to intention more so than even action or thought. What do
Mhm.
you say about that?
Well, I think that goes back to human beings. I mean, you can say, like, I want the world's most incredible career, but if your intention is to go back to sleep, it's probably not going to work. So we want an intention that's like a driving force. But plants are very aware of that. It's like, even if I'm cutting flowers, they'll say, "Take those over on the left side," or "Leave me alone today, go get those." And doing that just makes this harmony come in. And as you keep going with it, the whole garden changes. There's this feeling of wholeness with it. Um, One thing that I would say is that the wolves taught me that all things that were powerful to them had this weird, like psychic blue light, like twilight. And powerful healing herbs will always have that aura if you look at it that way.
And
There's a different energy for things that heal us.
wow. And Julia, I'm curious, what are the ways, as like someone who's new to this, like what are the ways that I can start um, awakening this communication with nature? Like, what are some ways that I can start or things that I can start to do?
Okay, so if we go to plants, because that one's a little more obvious, I would say every day, I really want to hear you. I really want you to talk to me. I wish you would. I would also tell them how beautiful they were. They are, because wolves love that. Animals love that. People love that. If right now I'm looking at your soul and like you have a whole lot of peach colors, yellow colors, orange colors, so you're very vibrant. Yes, you. See how great that makes you feel? You have these beautiful colors that are like sunrise or sunset, and I can see the beauty of your soul. So you're already developing that, or it wouldn't be so obvious. The things that the wolves taught me were to meditate every day, particularly in the morning, because we catch the energy of the sun. I focus on my heart chakra by drawing a big circle on it. I've learned over time, because obviously I'm an emotional girl, if I feel all these things, to come back to my heart. And I see pink light in my heart whenever I'm upset or off emotionally, because I mean, literally, I can cry because, you know, there's a dead rabbit in the road. I have to watch myself all the time. So your heart space is where all those really beautiful desires and intentions come in. So that's sort of where you want to go with that. The other thing you can do is start meditating on whatever it is you really want. All of us, including me, have things that we really truly want that we're not working on. And when you start going in that direction, it truly awakens your consciousness. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. It's fascinating. Yeah, thank you.
Julie, could you elaborate a little bit more on the difference between um, the center of the heart and the mind? I think that this is something that is confusing for a lot of people. And yet, you know, us in metaphysics, we hear it time and time again that, you know, the driving force is through the heart, that the manifestations will happen through the heart. Can you explain that more to everyone who's watching?
Okay, if we can get to the heart, let's say for a second, something that you really truly wanted, or you really truly want with all your might, all your strength. That's your heart. Like right now, I really want to talk about the wolves because it's so amazing and it can help so many people. And you can hear and feel my heart when I'm saying it. If I say later on today when I'm bored, I want to read a book, notice how flat that is. Yeah, there are a lot of books I want to read, but that comes from my mind. So we think a zillion thoughts every day that don't take us anywhere. When you start to meditate, one of the things that they say, I think it's Chinese philosophy, Taoism, is that whenever you have a thought, you come back to your heart. You think about that space in the center of your chest. When you do, either the thought's going to seem inconsequential or really important. What was it? A friend of mine said, when you think about doing the dishes, you're losing your meditation, but it's not a bad sign. It means that if you'll notice that and how you distract yourself, you'll come back to your heart. Now, the wolves say that from our heart, our true desires of our soul are formed there. So if we think about that, we're automatically connecting with it. So just a few times a day, and I say to myself, can I move into pink light, which is love? And I'll think, oh no, I'm mad or I'm irritated or I don't want to do all this. And then I'll think, just think about pink light, think about your heart, think about your higher self, and notice how everything goes away when you do that.
So tonight happens to be a full moon. It's a super moon, actually.
Right.
And what will you be doing? And how do you communicate with the wolves long distance? So I would imagine this is a telepathic communication. So do you need just kind of tell us the logistics of it? Do you need to physically be present with wolves when you communicate with them? Or have you now transcended that? And I understand that on the full moon, you do speak with wolves. So how exactly does that work logistically? Is it through telepathic communication?
That's true telepathic communication. They definitely have a message that they want to get out. I invariably write it at night. I go look at the moon. I did this, it will come out today in my newsletter. There are lots of them in my blog post. They have a message every time. The message that they sent this time is essentially about how to create and how important it is. And that because everything is so unstable right now, that's actually a good thing. It gives us a lot of room to create in a lot of different ways. You know, I mean, the things that I listed compared to the profound things that the wolves taught me are relatively simple, but all of us can make ourselves get somewhere on time. If you've lost something, think about holding it in your hand or discovering it. If you want to begin to create the way that I'm speaking of, imagine that 3 months from now you already have, you're living that reality. Does that help? So I can pretty much find the way the wolves taught me. I'll say this, every living person has a vibration. They taught me how to find and create a grid. I can find people, I can find animals, I can find them. And because we're in the United States, they mainly send from the forest to wherever I am.
Let's go into that a little bit further. So when you're looking for what in particular, are they helping you look for, could it be a missing person? Like what are the applications for this? Because I think that as more and more people understand the beauty and the magic in communicating with both plants and animals, but also understanding the applications for that, why does it matter to our life? What are the benefits in that synergistic relationship?
Right, if everything is energy and you start to perceive energy, you can figure out if someone in your life is happy or sad. I can just think, oh, okay, so here's my friend. What is she doing today? And often I can see it just with that thought. If someone says, my dog is gone and I can't find it, I can look right away to see if the dog is alive. I can look to see if it's in their area because their field and their owner's field merge all the time. So I can find that. If someone says, I haven't seen my aunt in forever, is she still alive? I can look and see that. I can't always give the exact direction, but I can look and see that energetically. Let's say that you have a lot of business emails to send or a phone call. I can look and see when the energy is best for that because there's more energy at a good time. So it's very practical. I mean, we've been talking about the really spiritual thing, but I'm also very practical. The other 20% that is mine is a whole lot of studies of spirituality and philosophy. And so I've taken exercises that should take 30 or 40 minutes to do and reduce them to like a minute or two, which is fun. I mean, why not do it quickly? Why not have big results? That's my theory.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is it takes a lot of practice and dedication and commitment. And for someone who's like newer to this, it feels a little intimidating. And I'm like, where do I even start? How can I get to a point where I can take a 30-minute practice and do it in a minute or two? And I was wondering if you could speak into that or if you have any tips or anything.
Well, I do teach awakening classes every year. Those are a 9-month class that I teach a whole lot of these techniques. About a third of the class we repeat every single week. That's 3 classes, that's 27 classes. So by the time you've gotten through that, you have a habit of zooming up. Now, like a really simple way to raise your vibration right now is just imagine all the particles in the room are moving faster, because that's what they do when it's warm. And all creation is associated with warmth, right? Think about, conception. It's associated with warmth. So that's one thing that you can do. You can imagine right now that you're at a higher vibration. Sometimes we do things like imagine that we're moving the thermostat up spiritually, and they work. It's just using your imagination. So take a few things today. What would be an example of something you have to do today?
Well, I do have a bunch of emails to do, and I also have to do a workout today, but I'm dreading it. So
Okay.
those are two
So
major
I would
things.
I would say do the workout first because it's always easier if you do what you don't like first. But imagine that it goes really fast and it's so much better than you thought it would be, and then you're doing it again tomorrow. Oh, wow, that was great. That's what I always tell myself. Oh, you're gonna feel so great. With your emails, you have 3 or 4 that are really important. So I would do those first. I would take the other ones and break them into 2 or 3 groups and then do them in that way. Now, before you send the email, imagine getting a great result. Because if you do that, it's just notice how much better that feels just to do that. So it's like part of it is
Yes,
just
so
learning to
much
use your
better.
imagination.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
you're
Okay.
welcome.
I see the little practices and just doing those tiny things and
Mhm.
visualizing it and embodying it.
Right.
Yeah.
However much money you have in your bank account or your wallet or whatever, add 10% more. Why not? When you think about it,
Yeah. Thank you.
every time you spend, more money comes in. Wow, it's so great.
Julia, going back to the wolves, do you have a favorite story or two with your interaction with wolves, or a success story with a client that kind of went back to your relationship with wolves and how they were able to help you or able to help your clients, or just some special story that comes to mind?
Sure. Um, One of the things that really comes to me, because we were such great friends and we had so much fun, wolves are always playing tricks on you. They're always playing. They're very, very smart. But when I had a wolf, she was perfect for about the first 3 months. And then she was just awful because wolves test you. Because the alpha wolf is always dominant and strong and never yields. So I had to go back and practice with my friend Liz's wolves. And of course, they knew right away what I was doing. They would not do anything that I said. I mean, nothing. So I had to learn to change my posture, to change my voice, like sit now, you will sit now. And they would. But it was a change in my energy. I had to see myself as becoming more powerful and capable of doing that because wolves have very strong boundaries. That's the law of the pack. So you have to understand that and have your own boundaries. And it's a fine line, just like humans have. You certainly cannot be abusive. Wolves don't put up with that, which is one of the things I love about them. But when I did finally do it, like 10 wolves just came running up to me and started licking me and kissing me like they were so proud of me. But it changed me forever that I went through that. As far as helping others, I took borrowed Sheba from my friend Liz, beautiful white wolf, almost white. We called her blonde, but I took her to a class in Atlanta with me. First of all, we were running late. She folded time. I was 5 minutes early. I have no sense of direction, and she got me there. And I had someone there who could not open her heart. She was totally shut down. And Sheba went and sat in front of her and did not stop staring at her heart space for like 15 minutes. And the woman said, I give up. I'm opening up. I'm opening up to love. You did it. And you could just see her entire person change in that 15 minutes. She became a different person.
That's beautiful. I think a lot of people are going to be very fascinated in the idea of folding time.
Mhm.
So, some of us have studied quantum mechanics, and we might have a little bit of background on the actual mechanics of that and light cones and things like that. But what is your understanding? What have the wolves taught you? How would you say that folding time is accomplished?
They see time as a variable, not a fixed point. So if it's just an illusion and they see it that way, we take the time that we're in and we fold it so that whatever we're experiencing aligns with the world's illusion of time, because there isn't any. But you have to stay calm while you're doing it. You can't think any anxious thoughts. You see yourself arriving at the exact time that you want to be there. And you are, and usually whoever you're meeting walks in at the same moment that you get there. So it's like you put all your attention on a specific point in time and things change then. And that's really part of manifestation. When you're seeing something that you want, you see yourself as having already arrived. You see details, you feel the people there, you feel what's happening in your life, and you're focusing on it without any kind of anxiety or any kind of, I can't do it. And it works, and it does eventually override a lot of anxiety and a lot of negative thinking habits.
It's actually a really interesting thing because I talk to a lot of people also who there's this kind of a catch 22 between what they want, their deep desires, their passions, their goals for their life, maybe what they might want to do with a change of career or some big project, something that they want to do. But then the catch 22 is that they have a lot of fear around it, or a question of, should I be doing this? Is this really for me? I want it. There's that desire that they have, but they're not sure if they're capable of it, or if they have the right background. Maybe do they have the right education to do this? So there's things holding them back with their doubts and insecurities and fears, and yet they want it. So what advice would you give for that?
Okay, with every major manifestation, you are going to have blocks. If you didn't have a block, if you didn't have a belief or a series of images that was in the way already, you would have manifested it. So that's part of the work, is getting through the part of you that doubts. Like the story I told of all of a sudden I couldn't get my wolf to do anything. And then I went to see the other ones and they acted like they were the worst children, only with teeth, right? that you've ever been around. I'd say, sit. Look at me like you're a dummy. But after I changed myself, they changed their behavior. The world itself will change its behavior when you get through your block. And it always takes an act of courage. I mean, just because it's a funny story, I had literally written one article, I think it was about wolves, when Spirit of Mont, which was an online magazine, was looking for writers. And I sent it in and I said, I really want to do this. And then I was hired to write articles, one article. So it doesn't matter what you've done. It's getting into that place in the quantum field of wanting to express your talents, your gifts, and doing something different, because otherwise reality is very limited. And why would we stay in a limited reality, right? But there are specific ways to get through blocks, because I can see people's energy and I can feel their memories. And so a lot of times I'll pull out like a really good memory and say, remember how you were when you did this. So if you did that, then we're going to take that energy and start holding visuals of that. And I'll also hold the visuals for them. So that makes it go a lot more quickly. And that's something everyone can do if you really care about someone. See the best for them, because you're also creating it for yourself, because we're all connected.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I like to tell people too is that even when you have, an enemy or an adversary or someone at work who's trying to undermine you, to send that person the positive energy, to hold positive energy for that person, to imbue them with a lighter energy, because as they lift up, they no longer have that desire to steal energy and power from others. Because I find that that's really what the cycle of abuse is
Mhm.
when you're feeling disempowered in some way. And so, without knowing the best ways to achieve that self empowerment, people usually unconsciously try to steal energy from other people around them. And that's jealousy, that's all these different things. So, what would you say? It sounds like you would back that idea up, that what we want to do is actually empower them to send them light.
What I do is send light to their inner self, not their outer self, because people who have these kinds of problems, when they get a lot of energy from you, it usually fuels them. But if you're sending it to their inner self, it will catch up whenever it can. There's also an element of karma. Sometimes these are people from past lives. Sometimes these are issues that you have, of the way that you believe that people steal energy or come into your life and affect you. And it's also about developing a different response, like my story with the wolves. The minute that I did that, people started leaving me alone and giving me some distance because they could feel it. So it's dual, it's both. You've got to work on yourself. I will say this, the situation goes away when you change and you stop sending them negative energy.
And I have a question. Have the wolves helped you and supported you in your relationships and these type of dynamics? Like how have the wolves supported you in your relationships?
Okay, remember I told you I'm super emotional all the time. So what I learned is to wait 24 hours. A lot of times I'll write down how I feel and come back to it and then say how I feel. And during that time, it gives you enough of a read of energy. Why is this person doing this? So that's compassion. A lot of the time when people are awful, it doesn't mean they're trying to hurt you. It means they're out of alignment with who they really are. It can be that you're having to learn how to communicate in a different way. It can mean that you're trying to learn to control your temper. It can mean that you just have to be less judgmental about it and more neutral. So learning to be neutral, because it gives you so many choices, is a great place to go. That's been probably the biggest thing that I've learned. And then I can figure it out later. But the first thing is come back to neutral, which you can't always do. I mean, sometimes it may take you a year to work through that, but it's okay.
And energy wise, you had previously told me a really neat story that has really resonated with me. It's pretty fantastic. So it was having to do with whenever you've had wolves living with you, that deer would show up on the property,
Right.
and that they're in this synergetic relationship, that I'll let you tell it.
Sure.
It was just a really fascinating, and I think it applies to a lot of other situations.
Right. So I was living on the main street of this little town, and my eco came to live with me. I adored her. We dreamed together. She slept in my room, all those things. Well, when she had been there a couple months, all of a sudden deer started to appear everywhere. Now, remember, I'm in town on the main street. Then there were deer in the backyard. Then little fawns would show up on my back step, give them something to eat, and they would go on. The reason that the deer appeared is because they are the chosen prey of wolves. Doesn't mean that my wolf ever would have hurt them or been interested in chasing them or anything, but they're part of the same dream sequence. Wherever they're wolves, they're deer. So when we move into a different dream sequence from all these things that I've been saying about imagination, seeing life differently, reacting differently, we bring in a whole different reality. So when that reality merges with us, it creates this incredible harmony. And part of it is with nature. But the other part is realizing we can bring in different dreamscapes of life, that's part of our potential. And as more and more people do it and become harmonious, the more of those we're going to create. Did that answer your question?
I think it's fascinating, and I actually like to learn a little bit more about how you see this as um, applying to people's lives. So let's take the idea, because what's so fascinating about this is that the deer are the prey, and
Hmm.
yet they're showing up. So they're not running away from where a wolf lives. And as you said, your wolf was getting fed.
Right.
Your wolf doesn't need to eat these deer. So there, it's an energetic thing. And it's not just the wolf attracting what it would need in the wild as prey. This is the deer showing up because the wolf is already there, and because they have this synergetic relationship that when one is there, the other is there. So can you speak more to that and how we can extrapolate that into our own lives?
Well, I can tell you a really incredible story because I still think it's hilarious. When I started growing herbs, about the only way to get a lot of them were through seeds. So I had to learn what the seedlings looked like, right? So I didn't pull them up. So we're into the middle of the summer, like July. And for some reason or other, I just decide to go sit on the lawn. The whole thing is filled with different varieties, not the ones I planted, but of the same species of those plants. So planting those plants pulled in all the other species that existed, I guess. The field pulled them in because like attracts like, or whatever those pieces are that come together. Another example of this is like, let's say someone says, no matter what I do, my career won't work. Well, the first thing you start with that is, how do you want your career to work? Who do you want to work with? And we always want people with good hearts, who are intelligent, who are kind, and who want to grow, right? It's no fun otherwise. Let's add intuitive. So anyway, though, when you figure that out, you start to attract that energy. When the energy comes in, the jobs come in. Do you have more questions about that?
No, it's fabulous. And you had also told me, so we have a fairly new property. I'll just share this with everyone else because Julie and I have talked separately about this.
Mhm.
And we moved in not too long ago, a few months ago, and there were a lot of rabbits on our property. Now, mind you, it is a large property. So we just thought, oh, we have wildlife of all sorts, but there is a lot of rabbits. I mean, anytime we would go for a walk, there's at least a dozen rabbits. So you had told me that rabbits actually present themselves when there's fear
Mhm.
there. So the
Right.
fear already existed perhaps from the previous owner of the property, and that, these energies just attract each other. So guess what? I saged the whole property. We did an energy clearing on the whole property, and Julia, there are a lot less rabbits. There still are a few because they live here and they're all having babies, but there are a lot less. And I even said to my husband, have you noticed a lot less rabbits since we kind of have been actively trying to turn the energy on the property? And he's
Mhm.
like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So our totem animals, there's something called totem animals in which every animal, every bird has a meaning. Now, just seeing one, like for example, there are possums where I live, and maybe I see one every 10 days or so. Um, that's normal. Maybe I see a rabbit every now and then. I usually see deer 3 or 4 times a week. That's all normal. But if I see one out of sequence, like once a deer followed me and my 110-pound German Shepherd around the park, that's not normal. That's the message, dear, unconditional love. Rabbits or fear, I did not think that the fear came from you. I thought it came from the previous owner, which obviously it did. So nature is always, always speaking to us if we just pay attention.
Absolutely incredible. Can you talk to the wolves at will? For instance, right now, while we're doing this incredible session, this Zoom, do you have a message from the wolves that you can bring through?
The most important thing that we can do is to begin to realize that we can direct our energy to create a world that's in alignment with our heart. When we're in alignment with our heart, we develop courage, we develop perseverance, we develop the ability to see energy and to understand what it means. As soon as you can feel energy and recognize it as such, you can begin to change it. The whole point of the wolf's appearance at this point in time is because the world is shifting radically. As the world shifts, the energy is moving all around in the planet. If you start focusing on who you really are, the true expression of yourself, when you start focusing on what you truly desire and what happiness is for you, then it must come for you. Imagine 100,000 people being in alignment with nature, in alignment with their heart, in alignment with the light and animals. Immediately, those people are connected and a grid through psychic energy. From this place, all the things on the planet can literally change. Most human beings on this planet are limited by their ideas of what abundance is, without ever knowing how easy it is to create it, of seeing themselves of not being happy and repeating past things, and not imagining and feeling and knowing and trusting that life can change. It's relatively dense right now, energetically, but how do you change it? You change it by going into this place of creation because that vibration is so much higher than the current energies on the earth.
That was incredible. Truly incredible. You know, I've heard this before about the 1% of light can change the whole. What do you think that is, that why 1% of light, not negativity? It doesn't work the same apparently the other way around. And they've done studies on this. They've done, I think there was a glass of water that they charged 1% of the molecules in the water positively, and somehow through kind of a viral energy, the positive spreads throughout the entire glass. So, how would you put that in the terms of what you know and how you communicate with nature? How would you explain to people that light always wins and that it only takes 1% of lighter consciousness to change the world?
I'm going to give you a really sort of silly example, but when I was at work and someone came in who was a nurse and I was having a really bad, tired week. And I remember she came and put her hand on my shoulder. And I could immediately feel this life force and feel like I was loved. And I was just amazed. And I thought, that's what a real healer feels like. It completely changed my vibration. So light, love completely change our vibration. Now with the wolves, I would call it a double charge because so much of their energy comes from the earth. So you're getting it along with that. But when a wolf loves you, there's nothing that can hurt a wolf for the most part except a human, right? They love you completely. They don't need you. They can leave, they can feed themselves. They're only there with you because they've decided to be. And that's a completely different kind of love. I think for those of us who are growing in consciousness, we're connected with other people because it's what we really want to do, just like right now. So that tiny bit of light that we're putting out, it alters, those particles alter everything that they hit.
Um, what have you learned about unconditional love from the wolves?
That you can't hold yourself back. You've got to love passionately. You've got to take the risk. I mean, one of the worst things about being a human is that we outlive our pets, right? But you've got to decide that the love is worth it. Being in love, feeling love doesn't mean that things are going to be easy. It just means that you're connected to that divine source that's always radiating out love. As human beings, we oscillate, we go up and down, we have good days, we have bad days. But if you think about it, it's the love that keeps you there. It's the love that keeps you going. It's, I couldn't believe how they loved me. They thought I was a great person. I had never felt that way before. I had never liked myself the way they liked me. They gave me that. When we love someone else or we love an animal, we're always seeing their beauty. We're always perceiving their inner self. There's something to do with our energy on earth. My goodness, what a good thing to do with it, right?
That led into my next question perfectly because I also hear a lot of people wondering, what's redeemable about humans these days? We look at what we're doing to the planet environmentally, pollution, what we're then doing to nature, the decimation of species. So how can we, marry that in our consciousness to understand that we're worthy of their love? And I do think that a lot of people think that if nature does communicate with us and if they were to communicate, that they would be just wanting us to make things better so that the planet could be healed, maybe for their sake, that these humans better smarten up. Let's help them to smarten up so that
Definitely.
we can all live in harmony. So I'm sure that is true, but it sounds like you're saying it's also true that they genuinely love us. And what would you say to that, to people who have a hard time understanding why they would love us when we, behave the way we do towards nature?
Because they see who we are on the inside. Whoever our true self is, whoever our inner self is, if there's some little part of us that identifies with it, we're redeemable in their eyes. And they really truly think that they can teach us to create. Like if I see a lot of pollution, change it, see a clear sky, see trees everywhere, see people working less hours and having time to be outside and time to walk. And there's so much abundance for everyone. We're just doing what we love. We're not necessarily doing it for money anymore.
And are wolves are they the apex basically of the telepathic communication with humans? Or is this just absolutely all animals? Or are there some among the animals that are sort of special in this regard?
To me, because they hit the sonar, the whales, the dolphins, the coyotes, the wolves. They put out these monthly messages of, come on, humans, get it. We're sending you everything. You can change everything. We're doing our part. You can do it too. But I think all animals put out a vibration that helps with all of it. Um, I'm trying to give a good example here. Well, like the deer is love, and they teach us how to move in a quiet way. I had a pet deer for years. They all have something that they share, but as far as the messages, I would say I think that group is probably the strongest. And that's just because they can hit notes that no one else can.
Do you think they're now holding consciousness for this planet? Are they, through their sonar, their heart and mental images, are they holding the beautiful planet for us right now? Are they keeping together the vision of a healthy planet?
Yes, I think that what we do have that's left of a healthy planet is because all the animals are working on it so hard and they believe in us. They're like all the time, you can do it, you can do it, don't stop.
Are they mad at us, Julia? I mean, is there also that? Do they know? Okay, they're not, but do they know that we did this? Do they know that this is
They feel,
anthropogenic?
they feel sorry for us for doing it. They feel like we're really stupid for doing it. They're trying to make us smarter, like we're going to send you to school and you're going to figure out how to do this.
That's amazing. And it really is. So they look at us, it sounds like you would look at a child who's doing something wrong, almost unknowingly. Is it that we're unknowingly doing it though? We should know by now what poisons the planet.
Here's the thing is we're not in charge of all of it. What they want us to do is to get our energy together as individuals and learn how to create. When we do that, the other groups just simply won't want to do it or they'll disappear. It's like what you were saying at work. When you change your vibration, either you work somewhere else, that person goes away and they hire someone wonderful who loves you and gives you energy, but it's a different scenario. So if we can master our part, the scenario of, let's say, people who think it's just great to spray pesticides or pollute everything, they just won't be able to do it. In the same way that once you change yourself, people could not attack you or hurt you as they have in the past. So they see it as individuals, just the ones who are awake. The other ones are not in use.
There's so much compassion that we can learn from nature, from the wolves, from animals, and it's just really inspiring me and wanting to tap into that. And it's just beautiful to see how that transformed your life and how you interact with your world. So
I never ever thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. Let's put it that way. But I'm happy. I'm very, very happy that I can do it. I'm happy that I can help people. I'm happy that I can make people think about nature and wolves. Don't want to leave them out there.
One of the initiatives at the Viral Energy Institute is something we call Global Viral Contemplation, which is to encourage people to come together, whether that's one or two people or small groups or little pockets of groups around the world, and to contemplate the wellness of Mother Earth. So, this is exactly what you've been speaking of, for us to hold this image that is generated from our heart and to hold it within our consciousness, to just contemplate on the beautiful, healthy Mother Earth, to contemplate on all of the positives and to see our environment the way that it should be in perfect health and wellness. So, with that thought in mind, is there a particular, time that we could encourage people, anyone who's listening and watching now, to come together? Would that be, on the full moon? Is there a time when we
Sure.
could say to everyone, this is when you
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah, like the full moon. I like 9 o'clock because nine's a magical number. It's completion in the magical world. But on the full moon, because there's more light, we're more receptive. So we can all say 9 o'clock on the full moon. Let's see the most beautiful planet we've ever seen. And the wolves were reminding me at one point we were losing our blue jays here. And a friend of mine who was a wildlife biologist said, oh, they'll go next. And I thought, no, they won't. So I started seeing blue jays. I started seeing more bees. I started seeing more salamanders and toads. And like 2 years later, they were everywhere. So if we're hearing that something is dying, we want to see the opposite. If we're reading something awful about bees, well, let's plant flowers for bees, but let's see them everywhere. So it's sort of like an opposite use of consciousness from what we were taught. Oh, no, it's bad. No, change it.
It's just amazing. We do hear a lot about that, especially in the last couple of decades, these new age decades, if you will, the idea of visualization and that we can manifest what we visualize and what we believe. And yet, so many people are just not deploying this resource at our heart tips, I'm going to say. So what
Right.
would you say to that? What more can you add to that conversation to really encourage people that this stuff works? Give us another story or some encouragement that this really does work.
Okay. So here's the thing. Let's say that you're with someone and they're in a bad mood, or you're in a bad mood, or your children are in a terrible bad mood. Well, what if you just stop feeling it or thinking about it and start thinking about love, thinking about things working, um, making it go into a place where your life is working? So here's a good story. Is my daughter called one time. Her payment from work had not gone through to her bank account. She didn't have any gas and her card wouldn't work. So I said, okay, I'll fix it. Get in the car, close your eyes, give me 2 minutes. She's like, this won't work. I'm like, yeah, it will. Just close your eyes. So she does. Now, I want to be clear. This can only work if you're receptive to it, but she's seen it for a lot of her life. So I said, the first thing we're going to do is get your card to work. There's no money there. I'm like, your card will work. Go try it. So she puts it in, the gas comes on, and she's like, oh my God, my car is full. I'm okay now. I said, no, we've got to fix your bank account. So I said, turn off your phone and then call me right back. So she did. So I said, now look and see if your deposit is going through. So it had. She said, what did you do? And I said, it was already there. I just saw it showing up electronically. So that's an example of how we can help other people very quickly. Now, not everyone is open to it. If you're not open to it, then examine why. If you are open to it, why not make these cool little things happen all day long for you and other people? You know, you can have such a happier life, and it helps everyone and everything.
We could almost try one little thing a day, right? Just test
Mhm.
it. Every day,
Yeah,
test it.
yeah. Start seeing that there's less traffic. See checks come in the mail or money come in somehow, some way. If you're cleaning something, visualize that it's clean before you start. Here's another tip. Light blue light calms things down and makes it easier to make things happen. So if I get to a chaotic moment and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got 10 emails to answer, a person to talk to for an hour after that, and then I've got this and this, I'll say, stop it. Put up the light blue light and ask her how it should flow. So you notice how just when I'm saying this, how calm it is. You can always just imagine that everything in your room is light blue and it's all calming down and working.
Dima, as we get close to the end of our session, as a student of animal communication, do you have any closing questions for Julia?
Really, what what like what has been one of the most life-changing experiences for you? Like a big takeaway that can leave me feeling inspired and full. And I mean, I am feeling totally lit up by our conversation, and I was just wanting to like know, like, what is one transformative experience for you that like can
When I
leave me
stopped
with
asking
something?
how,
Yeah.
I stopped asking
How?
how things should happen and I just started seeing them because the how is up to the universe. You may know what, you may know when, you may know where, but the how it comes from the universe. Like I said, getting a job from having written one article for something that was fairly well known. Um, I never planned to do what I'm doing. People just started. First, they wanted animals, and I did that for about a year. And then I'm like, gosh, I'm making so much more money off this than I am off work. I wonder what I'll do. And then this woman was having all these problems. I'm like, I don't do people. I don't want to talk to you about it. She's like, for goodness sakes, you read me all the time through my dog. Please, please help me. So I did. And then that's how I found out I could do readings for people.
It's
So it's
deep
letting
trust.
go. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Of how and just
Thank you.
believing it will work. And I'm not saying that I didn't go through struggles because most of the time I believed that I couldn't do it. You know, how will this work? This is crazy. Nobody does this, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I will.
Wow.
And we're glad that you do. It's absolutely amazing. We've experienced your work firsthand, and you are absolutely a gifted healer. And we just thank you for sharing your light. And if you enjoyed this session with Julia, Julia has also done a session strictly on animal and pet communication. So make sure that you don't miss that one. You can find Julia at onetrueself.com. And do you have some closing thoughts for us, Julia, that you would like to leave with us as we hate to say goodbye to you today, but maybe you can just leave us with a little word from Julia Griffin.
Sure. So it's interesting because I can also feel the future, right? Because it's just energy. You can send energy ahead to an event. Like if you're going to travel somewhere, you can see that going easily before you ever get there. Um, I can feel your energy in the future. And I can say that for all the people who will listen to this, you can do this stuff. Not everybody can, but you can. Because if you've gotten this far, your consciousness is high enough to do it. It's practicing. So choose something for every day. Maybe you sleep better at night. Maybe you feel wonderful when you wake up. Maybe the animals come out and you can learn about the messages from them. Just look up totem animals. Maybe you decide to meditate. Maybe you decide to see the world differently when you go around because like if I see trees coming down, I imagine 5 years from now they're gigantic trees. We're all happy, we have answers, everything is healthy, we're healthy. There are options, their imagination, but also go for what you want and don't get discouraged. If it's something you've wanted your whole life, a year or 2 years of working for it is nothing because how many years have you gone without it? 20, 30, 40. So start now, you can do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been incredible. And again, make sure you check out onetrueself.com and look up all of the wonderful services of Julia Griffin. She's amazing. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.